All right, we are at rep number 5 or in rep number 5. I don't know how to, somebody help me, English major somewhere. But okay, rep number 5. I know that much. We're starting. Thank you. Rep number 5. Yep. And again, we're getting better at poetry by just reading it, exploring it, or recognizing it, reading it, exploring it, and then making sure we leave with a what. All right, so Kadaji, you've got this rep. We are in Proverbs. Proverbs is a poetry book. It's very interesting to realize that Proverbs is just a massive amount of poems. And again, I have butchered this because I've not read it like it was poetry. Mm-hmm. I don't know really how I've read it just like it was wisdom. Somebody's just trying to give me wisdom, but they're trying to give me wisdom in a very creative way. And so this is, it's no major context that I'm aware of. There could be some scholar out there. Y'all make sure you put in the comment section to help us all out. But I do know that it is poetry and it's dealing a lot with wisdom, practical insight, practical know-how. And so this one, it kind of gives you a little hint at the very beginning. I don't know if it's not the whole chapter because we couldn't do the whole chapter, but we're just reading verses 1 through 9. And so whenever you're ready, you can go ahead.
All righty. Proverbs chapter 4, verses 1 through 9. The subtitle is Get Wisdom at Any Cost. Listen, my sons, to a father's instruction. Pay attention and gain understanding. I give you sound learning, so do not forsake my teaching. For I too was a son to my father, still tender and cherished by my mother. Then he taught me, and he said to me, take hold of my words with all your heart. Keep my commands, and you will live. Get wisdom. Get understanding. Do not forget my words or turn away from them. Do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding. Cherish her, and she will exalt you. Embrace her, and she will honor you. She will give you a garland to grace your head and present you with a glorious crown. So let's go through this. So this is, who is speaking?
I'm pretty sure. Well, there's debate, but let's just assume it's Solomon.
Solomon. Okay, I don't know all of them.
Yeah, I don't either. But I think the first 7. Let's just go with that assumption right now.
Okay.
It may not be, but I think it's a safe assumption. Let me say that.
Okay, so he's opens with telling them to listen, like listen to my words, my son. So he's talking to his sons. Probably the emphasis is listen, hear me, and obey what I'm trying to tell you to do. So to a father's instructions, pay attention and gain understanding. I give you sound language, did not forsake. It's just at the beginning, it seems to just be an encouragement. Like, this is what I'm giving you. I'm giving you sound wisdom. So take heed to my words. He, in verse 3, he is showing like that I too was a son. So you are my sons, and I've been in your place, and this is how I've gotten to be where I am, by following what it is that I'm about to tell you. Verse 4, then he taught me, talking about his father. So his father gave him this wisdom, and he's passing this wisdom on to his sons. So going from generation to generation. Take hold of my words with all your heart. Keep my commands, and you will live. So like Matt said with the other one, that's a promise. So you will live if you take a hold of this wisdom that I'm giving you. Verse 5, he gets to the wisdom. Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words or turn away from them. Turn away, that's a good visual, like if you forget something or you turn away from somebody, you're leaving. You're leaving them. You're leaving whatever they are talking about. So I envision somebody turning their back and walking away from whatever it was that was before them. And so in this case, you're walking away from wisdom and understanding. Verse 6, do not forsake wisdom. She will protect you. So it's personifying wisdom, calling wisdom a she. that if you love her, she will watch over you. So it's kind of playing off like that wisdom. You are in a relationship with wisdom. That you need to love her. She will protect you. She will watch over you. So you immediately envision a woman doing this. He talks about his mother earlier, that, you know, that she cherished him. So you could maybe think about your mother, you know, or just a woman in general doing this for you. Verse 7, the beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom, which is so funny to me. It's like the beginning of it, get it. Like, though it cost all you have. So, you know, the word cost, like as if you're paying for it. Whatever you have, pay for it, because you need to get understanding. And so the money in imagery, whatever, you know, just buy it, basically. Verse 8, cherish her. That's a good word, cherish. Like holding something dearly, protected. It has great value. And she will exalt you. So that's another imagery, I think. She will lift you up, embrace her. That's kind of the same thing as cherish, I think, or, you know, hold her in close, take a hold of wisdom, and she will honor you. So she will exalt you. So that's what did you say that? When they're doing the same thing, because I think they're doing
just repetition.
Repetition, repetition of the point. And then verse 9, she will give you a garland to grace your head, and present you with a glorious crown. So, as if you know you are esteemed if you if you take a hold of wisdom, like if you follow. So this kind of makes me think like, okay, well, what is wisdom? If I need to make sure I get it at any cost, that's the what that I'm taking away, I think, is that I need to get wisdom at any cost. Like you said, it gave you a hint with the subtitle. It basically told you what the main thing is to get it, because it is something of great value, that you will live if you take a hold of it. So that it just makes me want to explore, okay, what exactly is wisdom and understanding? And how can I apply it to my life? That's kind of what I kind of at first glance start to think about. I'm starting the process. Okay, his father told him this. Now he is telling his sons. Okay, so I probably need to make sure that I convey this to the generations coming after me. And teach them to grab a hold of wisdom. It makes me think, okay, am I grabbing a hold of wisdom? Am I viewing wisdom with this high of
regard?
Regard.
Really
this high regard. Yeah, because it's like at any cost, get understanding. Wisdom will keep you on the right path. If you go off, she'll protect you. She'll watch over you. You know, it's kind of puts me in that mind. Did you have anything to add, Matt or Nathan?
No, you really blessed me with the part. I mean, I made it a point to go back to look at this. You mentioned a relationship with wisdom. I never thought about it in terms of that, because one of the main themes is familial in this, because it's a father to a son.
Great point.
And so the fact that the author chose to use that, because that's relational, because it's a family and it's generational.
Man, that's good.
So the fact the minute you said that phrase, a relationship with wisdom, I thought, boy, that's a what in of itself. Like to understand that it is a relationship, and that, you know, it ties back generational too. In other words, it's not just relational and familial, and it's generational, and it ties me not only to my family, but it ties me to God the Father. You know, in terms of, so that was. You blessed me with that. That's good. I mean, and again, it ties back to why get wisdom, you know, the relationship. And I did want to point out, if I may have got this part right, with the progression, is what I thought was interesting is it started off a little bit, I wouldn't say cold, but more formal, like listen, learn, and gain understanding. To then it was personified. Wisdom was then personified as a woman, then personified as a relationship. So at the very end, it was no longer even her, that wisdom became she. You know, it was that person. Like, I even think there's something I could go back and unpack about just in 9 verses of a poem, how it went from being an instruction to being a relationship.
Great
And
point.
it makes me
so
tie
good.
back to my walk with the Lord, of just
Amen.
acknowledgement to know God, but then to really understand that it's personal for me.
Yep.
So
Yep.
all those things converging
Yep.
for me at the same time just was like, wow, there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot in this. So thank you for
is.
that. When you said that, the relationship, I was like, wow, that really unlocked something. So thank you. That's
And I'm like, where will we get wisdom? Like, we're going to get it from
That's
the
true.
Lord.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
So,
Yep.
When you said that, I kept thinking, that's what I kept tying back to too, is I was like, well, then get wisdom. Well, what is wisdom? And it's like immediately I was thinking of, the law or the Lord, just all those things. And even tying back to our previous thing, we were studying a poem to say, okay, and now I even have the imagery of the tree planted versus moving and all these things that go back to it. And it's like, boy, this is good. So
yeah. And I'm thinking about, I think it may be in James, or I'm not sure exactly, but earthly wisdom. Is that James? We talked about? Okay.
Earthly wisdom.
Yeah,
I just got to finish the quote for me.
I can't remember all of it, what it's saying, but I'm just thinking about the fact that there is a difference between worldly wisdom and godly wisdom. Because I don't think worldly wisdom, that she would be personified like this in God's eyes. She would not protect you. We don't need to embrace worldly wisdom.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking about the difference between the two. So make sure that we know what wisdom the Lord is referring to here.
And this is really, I didn't try to do this, but even going from Psalms 1, what we just read, to now Proverbs 4, going from what benefits delighting in the law of the Lord will produce in your life to what benefits the wisdom will produce in your life. And then not only the intensity in which he's talking about wisdom. It's like, though it costs you all you have, imagine right now emptying out all your 401k, every ounce of your bank account, selling your house, like empty everything you have to get wisdom. Every possession you own, it's that important. When you put that kind of weight on it, it's almost like, how have I viewed it beforehand? How have I been viewing, how lax have I been with getting wisdom? Is it like, I'll get to that at some point. I really need help with this, but I'll just, as I love Matt's phrase, shilly-shally around it. Or am I willing to, and I think about Jesus when he stayed up all night and prayed about who his disciples were going to be. He might have got the answer in the first hour. He could have spent the next 11 hours, the next 9 hours, just making sure, or whatever it may be. But wisdom was so important to him that he stayed up all night to make sure that he was where he needed to be. And so it's like, Lord, give me that level of tenacity when it comes to wisdom and the level of confidence. Because if I cherish her, I'll be exalted. If I sell everything I have to get her, I'll be honored. I'll have a crown of glory on my head because I pursued and I cherished wisdom. And that, to me, this ties back to earlier Psalms 1. Wisdom is found in the law. Delight yourself in the law of the Lord. That's just one place where it's found. And so it's like, if I hold on to hit these words right here and I just go back and I just enjoy God's word, I'm using a link here that may not be completely justified, but this is where my mind is going. If I exalt God's word in my life, he'll exalt me. If I delight in his word, he'll honor me. I'll get a crown of glory. Like it's just like, that's one avenue. Even though it was personified as a woman, we just read how wisdom can be found in his word as well. And so I just made that link for one avenue.
He's speaking to his son. So he's using a woman, much like, I think he's playing on that for the relational thing. In other words, just like you said, empty your bank account, but it could also be, it needs to be more than your lust would be for any other woman. In other words,
That's good. That's good.
You're seeking her, unlike you're seeking her being wisdom, unlike you're seeking anything else. And it's drawing upon that because he's, I believe, intentional because, what's a young boy, what's a young man going to be able to relate to?
Pursuit of woman. Pursuit of a woman.
And around you in your life.
Boy, Matt, go ahead, man.
So he's drawing that parallel as to say, well, but hold on. That's natural and that's okay. But let me tell you what's most important because my father taught it to me. right?
Amen.
So there's the consistency piece. It's not, and this has been proven. It's been proven
Generation after generation.
correct.
Yeah.
So there's got to be truth. I'm saying there's got to be some truth to it.
Yeah.
right?
Because it's lasting.
Yeah.
So the woman you should be seeking first
Yes. Yeah.
is go get her.
Boom. Boy, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good.
And I also thought about why he would speak in such with such intensity about wisdom is because it affects so much of our lives. With every decision that I make,
That's good.
I need wisdom.
Undergirded by some level of wisdom.
Yeah. To make right decisions, to make right choices, I need wisdom in order to do that.
Good.
So it is this important. I need to spend though it costs me everything, I need to make sure that I have wisdom, because every decision I make is affecting my life as a whole. And so, like he said, if you keep my commands, if you listen to me with wisdom, you'll live.
Yep.
And you'll live the right kind of life.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Man, that's great. That's a great point. Ready to roll? All right, on to rep number 6. We are attacking rep number 6 right now. All the energy we got. When you're working out and they say give it your best, like you might want to quit. We keep going. So this is Isaiah 53, a super famous chapter in the Bible. It's viewed as a prophecy for King Jesus. It doesn't really start at 53. There's a couple of verses before 53, but for whatever reason, it got delineated, and it starts with 53. I would actually like us to read the entire chapter, but then we only just go through the first 6 because we'll be here forever going through all of it. So let's just go through verses 1 through 6. And I think it's going to be cool because we're very familiar with this. But I'm just being honest, I had never read it like it was a poem. I read it like it was a prophecy, which I really don't even know what that means, but I had just read it like it was a prophecy. Mm-hmm. But now let's just take some time and read it as if it's a poem, and let's see what we can gain from it.
So you do want me to read all of the verses?
Yes, so we can have, so I think it'll be good for us for this particular thing, and then let's just spend time on 1 through 6. Absolutely.
Yes, sir. All right, so this is Isaiah chapter 53. Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? He grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain. Like one from whom people hide their faces, he was despised, and we held him in low esteem. Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering, yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and his wounds we are healed.
And by his wounds.
And by his wounds we are healed, We all, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. Yet who of his generation protested? For he was cut off from the land of the living. For the transgression of my people he was punished. He was assigned a grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, though he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it was the Lord's will to crush him and cause him to suffer. And though the Lord makes his life an offering for sin, he will see his offspring and prolong his days. And the will of the Lord will prosper in his hand. After he has suffered, he will see the light of life and be satisfied. By his knowledge, my righteous servant will justify many, and he will bear their iniquities. Therefore, I will give him a portion among the great, and he will divide the spoils with the strong, because he poured out his life unto death and was numbered with the transgressors. For he bore the sin of many and made intercession for the transgressors. Well, that's emotional.
Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's tough sometimes, especially when you read it out loud.
Yeah.
You think about it and start to contemplate it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Got a little tongue-tied there.
No, you're good. Yeah. As you were reading, it's really cool when you're taking the mental rep and not the physical. You can just kind of take it all in, and you've got a little bit more flexibility to put the images right there. And I thank you for that, Matt.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So we're going to unpack one. We'll start with 1 to 6.
1 through 6. Yes, sir.
All right. So what's interesting about how this starts, and when I was reading out loud, I never thought about that, it starts with a question, who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Which is interesting that the author chose that. It's starting and posing the question, especially knowing what is about to describe. It really draws attention to it. In other words, almost kind of like how you do call people to something. A lot of times you can do it by starting by saying, who has believed our message? And that really gets your attention to say, okay.
Am I part of that group?
Correct. That's what I was trying to say. Am I part of that group or not? And then, of course, he grew up before him like a tender shoot, like a root out of dry ground. Immediately for me, as I was reading this, it was just the vivid imagery of just the humble, the humility, at the same time, no beauty, just the commonality, right? That's tied to that. The commonality is saying no beauty, right? Just we're born, in other words, that I can relate to it, that this was the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, that he's talking about to be born, but that at the same token, it's no different than me. I can immediately, and I think that's why I got so somber as I was reading it, because I'm just sitting here thinking like, that this is my King and my Savior, but it's just looking at it going, a tender shoot, like a root out of dry ground. I'm already picturing, because I know the story of the stable. I'm picturing that, it's not, that juxtaposition of just, didn't come just boom on a chariot riding in, and it's like, here is the Lord, and I'm here. It was like, that there was pain in childbirth, for Mary, was born, cried like a baby, but it was just everything humble about that. And I see that imagery here.
Yes.
Had no beauty or majesty. He was despised and rejected by mankind, and a man of suffering and familiar with pain, right? And to me, that type of language just immediately makes it relatable, despised and rejected. And you're like sitting there thinking, wow, that's sets up a lot, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, because this whole focus is on him, right? Because the language and the repetition, he grew up, he was, right? That progression and the repetition is just, anyhow, it just can get emotional for me. Like one from whom people hide their faces, he was despised, and we hold him in low esteem, in terms of just and it also ties back to the relationship, right? I think of right there, I think of my walk with the Lord, how, where I was before knowing him and what regard I would have held him in versus the regard and the majesty that I hold him in now.
Amen.
Even just calling him King Jesus, calling him majestic versus just another prophet.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
And that delineation that he's setting up as a prophet himself is to say that, it's totally different. Surely he took up our pain. So this part is, but with all that being said, of how common and how humble and everything else, surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering. So the separate thought immediately that happens here is now we've jumped immediately to the sacrifice.
Yes.
That's what really,
Amen.
As I was reading it, that's why I kind of got quiet, was just because it immediately changes the tone in terms of like, common and all these other things, despite people hide their faces, but this is the one who chose to take my place. And it's set up immediately by, surely he took our pain and bore our suffering, yet we considered him punished by God, right? Even though that was will, as we now know, and came to do that, we considered him punished, stricken by him and afflicted, but he was pierced not for what he did, because he didn't do it, right? So the author is setting that up by immediately saying, but that juxtaposition also, or that contrast.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. Contrast
is He didn't do it, but he was pierced for it, right? Our transgressions, he was crushed. And back to that same repetition and progression, like, in other words, he was pierced. He was crushed, not me, but he was, right? The punishment that brought us peace was on him, right? So it was that's just so powerful in the same line saying punishment and peace. Right? And I think that really helps to get into the radical nature of just the gospel itself.
Amen. Amen.
How could somebody come so humble, and so common as a carpenter, but yet could be so great and so majestic? But I think at the same time, there's hope for us, because the same punishment and peace, it can be that dramatic, right? When we change and are transformed by Jesus Christ.
Amen.
It's like, and that punishment brings peace, right? Because we're so used to, that's why it's so radical, because usually punishment doesn't lead to that. Like, that's not the common thing that you think of when you start talking about punishment equaling peace.
Yeah,
Usually I think
you're right.
oppression or suffering, and so much of the Old Testament, respectfully speaking.
And what's the word? You're getting what you deserve.
Yeah, there you go.
Like,
Right,
peace isn't what I deserve after for the punishment.
Right. No, that's good. Thank you, Nathan. I was trying to think how to say that. And then the same play there where by wounds we're healed, right? Like, there's nowhere else in my life other than the gospel. And when I consider Jesus, do I think of something as being wounded, but to be wounded, you're healed.
Amen.
Right? There's nowhere else that you're wounded first. And so all that gets set up in this from that dichotomy back and forth is just, there's a lot going on for me to try to, but I see the imagery there.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
To say by wounds you're healed, like, wait, don't you heal the wound?
Yeah.
Right? But by wounds you're healed.
Yep.
But it also reminds you how radical this is.
Yep. And hopefully it's not too much of a segue, but think about Isaiah's audience.
Oh.
Imagine hearing all this without the context of Jesus.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I wasn't even thinking.
Because this is just where we are right now, but I'm just, when you said that, I was like, because it's sometimes hard for us to grasp it, but imagine having no context for Jesus and reading this and being like, he was pierced. So this dude, my language, was pierced for our transgressions, but I thought we had to go to the temple for our transgressions. I thought we had to go sacrifice an animal for my transgressions. He was crushed for, but I thought I had to take the place of my own sins. I thought I was the one that had to carry my own burdens by sacrificing and killing a lamb or a goat. But you're saying there's a person who's going to do all this. And the punishment brought me peace. I'm just trying to put myself in their shoes and just how it's even more radical. Like, it's less radical for us because we've been saved by it.
Well, we're on this side.
We're on this side of the cross. Thank you. And so it's just interesting to think about that, Matt. And I'm sorry, I know you have said verse 6.
No, that's okay. Thank you. I wasn't even thinking about you're right. The contemporaneous context, like, okay, who was hearing this message as it was being said? So thank you for that, because that's powerful. Verse 6, we all like sheep have gone astray. Yeah, so even in that thought, it's good because it makes it personal again too. I think what's powerful, now that you've just helped me with that, the context of that, this is the prophet, but he's also roping. We all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way, and the Lord laid on him the iniquity of us all. So just again, it's bringing it back personal, right, and even inclusive, not exclusive. And I think that's one of the most radical things when I think of Jesus Christ and dying for my sin is in spreading the gospel, is that it's an inclusive message.
Yes, Lord.
Not an exclusive message, and that's all of us.
Yep.
So sorry, I know I said a lot there.
Oh, no. Yeah, it was all wonderful.
There's a lot.
Don't
there's just
apologize.
a lot going on. I know in terms of, processing it, and I think the what for me is just, as I've gone back through this, a new what for me really, as I go back through this, is really just looking at it and saying that, I'm trying to think of how to articulate it exactly, but in my mind, it's one of these where, just in these first 6 verses, the fact that this is why poetry and this lesson has been so powerful for me, because there's no way the emotion that this evokes inside of me, that, especially being on this side of the cross,
Amen,
and everything else, and even I think for those people, that's why it was chosen to be this way, is because it could still evoke emotion.
Yes. Yes.
And set up the contradictions, because and there's a time for that, to just say that, Jesus Christ is your Lord, but what this was, and the message, and especially because it was the prophecy, right? And the promise.
Amen.
And one of the things I tie back to each of these lessons I've learned on today is that promise of God. And what I'm noticing is the authors, even though there's different authors, but that the Spirit of the Lord inspired people through poetry.
Yes.
To explain through different ways the promises of
Yes.
That's good. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, 100%,
God.
man.
In my mind it does, so I don't know how to articulate.
No,
that
you
yet,
articulate great.
okay.
Like through this medium, he
That's
is,
what I'm trying to say. Thank you, Nathan.
Yeah.
which is very beneficial, because, like you said, he could have just said, "I'm going to send my servant, and he's going to die so that you can live." That's in and of itself something, but
he set it up that I could relate, and these people could relate. That it's common and dry ground, and, right? No beauty, no majesty. So
a regular guy,
right? Yeah, it's not. Again, it's not exclusive. It's not. Hey, if you're over here and you're already a religious leader, you're good, type of thing. And that's the radical nature of the gospel in terms of just. For all.
Yeah.
Even as you said that, and I had never thought about just commonality. I love how you said that. I didn't mean to get in front. I guess I did get in front of you, Kadasha. But you talked about just being so relatable. Boy, that just is so at home with me. Almost where I could just take that with somebody else and tell them about it. He was despised and rejected by mankind. Have you ever been despised and rejected by mankind?
Yeah, I felt
a man of suffering and familiar with pain. Have you ever dealt with suffering and felt so that commonality, man, and that first thought, like one from people whom hid their faith. And so I just think about the people with disabilities and the poor. And this one right here, who they're listening to this, they can't even read. So right now they're just listening to this. Like, have people ran from you because of some disability or something about you? Have they just look at you, like just despised you? And as you're hearing one of the prophets just give this message, like, I just see it pulling you in more and more and more. Like,
it would get my attention.
It would get my attention.
Right at the beginning, that's what's so powerful.
Yeah.
How it is written, or how it was spoken, because it's like, oh wait, you're. Okay, yeah, I can relate. I think you are talking to me.
Yeah.
Right? Like we say, like when the Lord speaks, it's like, yeah, or you hear a great message or a pastor, you're like, oh yeah, that message is really for me.
Amen.
I think that's
100%
what they were trying to do. Yeah.
And despised and held. Have you ever been held in lowest? Have people devalued you? So this was powerful for me.
Despise was a word that was repeated a couple of times. And then I agree with you all with who he was talking to. He knew his audience. And so the agricultural terms, with the tender shoot, root out of dry ground, talking about verse 6, we all like sheep, they would know about sheep and know that sheep go astray. And so he knew who he was talking to. And then I agree with you all with verse 2 and 3, just talking about the promised Messiah, that he would be relatable. And the fact that let me correct your thinking about the promised Messiah, because we know that he will be our king, and you would envision a king to be a certain way. You would not envision a king to have no beauty or
chariots
majesty.
Of fire.
Yes. So in your mind, this is how they would expect their king to be. Like, you're gonna ride in this thing, and and look a certain way, be a certain way. Man, you wouldn't expect him to be despised, and his appearance for people not to desire him. You would think of somebody who would be very attractive, and all of that. That's how you would think, like, the king of the world would look like that. And so I think Isaiah, that I kind of took away from it was, this is him describing for us all and for his audience. This is what we are to expect our promised Messiah to be. and this is what we should expect our promised Messiah to do for us. He will be wounded for our, for us to be healed. And so I think that's kind of what I take away from it. Like, this is what, if I was in that time, this is what I could expect from my promised Messiah, for him to behave, for him to look like, all of that stuff. This is what I would take away.
And this is a good point, because so you got to imagine on the other side of the cross, Isaiah, this is why he has to use poetry. He has to take something abstract that he is getting from God. He's getting this information from God. How do I concretize this abstract reality, future reality?
Yeah.
The
so
best,
that you can understand
so
it.
that we can understand it, so I can deliver it in such a way that everybody I'm speaking to understands it. I use a poem.
Yeah.
I use a poem, and what an amazing job he did.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
because you can really feel it. Like,
Yes.
you can feel.
It's so emotional.
And I could just imagine the emotions that he is receiving from the Lord. And now I have to convey that so that you receive this and you receive the emotions that I have. And it, it evokes emotion automatically.
Yeah.
With certain words like rejected and despised. It's just certain words just are pierced, crushed. All of that is very strong language. Yeah.
And this would even, I want to give like an encouragement to people who are prophetic too. Even if you don't fully understand the messages that the Lord is giving to you,
that's good.
do the best you can. Write a poem. It's like, I know the Lord knows you. It's an abstract reality that you have to map into reality. Use a poem. I mean, Isaiah did, and really all the prophets did a great job, but I mean, I see it so strong here. On the other side I said, obviously I can say on the other side of this thing, he hit the nail on the head, but for the other side of it for the audience to be like, we don't really know what you're talking about, but this gives us a good picture. So
yeah, and thank you for what you said, especially the relatable part and using agriculture, like to help remind us to say, like, in terms of that, it was stuff that the people could completely relate to. It wasn't just the themes of maybe not feeling like included or belong to love, but that he actually used the language, and how important that is. That it was
to pull them in.
Yeah, and even for us, like if we are communicating the gospel, just talking to people,
in regular language,
make it relatable. Know your audience, yeah.
Man, it's good. Praise God. All right, good rep, y'all. That was really, really good. And that's why we had to stop at only 6 verses. So we'll go on to the next one.